Good morning and welcome everybody to the Crypto Mining Morning Show. What I left up there for you today was specifically the 6900 XT on Windows failing essentially to dual mine ETH and TON. This does seem to be an issue that's going on within Windows. I'm making you all aware of it. I haven't found a fix necessarily or anything like that. As far as on the Hive OS side, we are not having this same issue where the miner is stopping. However, we are having some issues with the Whales TON pool, specifically getting the generated revenue that we were even just a couple days ago. So to give you guys an idea, we were doing about 37 TON a day on the farm when we initially started it and made the video. So things were going pretty good there. And then it kind of just started falling off. I think the second day we only hit like 20 TON, and then now we hit like maybe 7 TON over the past like 24 hours, 7 or 8 TON. So it hasn't been good. It's definitely going down. Now, a lot of this is going to be due to some of the issues going on with Whales TON pool. I will be looking at just basically utilizing a different pool for some time. And then on top of that, it could also be because of the increase in difficulty since making the video, because lots of people are hopping on it. We'll look at that today when we get into the crypto mining portion of this, profitability portion of this. And before that, we have quite a few fun topics. We have North Korea using stolen crypto funds to fund their missile program. This is going to be one of those FUD articles that we're going to be talking about. I use the term FUD kind of lightly, so I don't think that it's unreasonable to talk about things that are potentially negative to the crypto space. And if we ignore them, I don't think that that helps anything. So usually when that term gets thrown around, I'm like, okay, but we have to be realistic and talk about these issues. Next, we're going to go ahead and talk about the Nvidia Hopper GPU and some rumors surrounding that. Then we have the Ergo governance token from getblock to discuss. That's implemented now. There's a page to cover what the votes are. It's really neat, and I think it's going to be interesting. And then we have Valkyrie aiming for an ETF linked to Bitcoin mining firms, and that's listed on the NASDAQ, and that we just got confirmation of that from the NASDAQ regulation accepting it. So that's official. I believe the announcement was back in January. So there you go as far as that is concerned. And we're going to be kind of taking a look at the markets. So one of the big things that, we've definitely been questioning on the channel, and I think overall as a community in cryptocurrency, is are we in a traditional super cycle or not? Because if we're in a traditional super cycle, then we would expect, of course, a downturn through March, that sort of thing. We've talked about it, definitely being cautious around purchasing more equipment, making sure you're not going to be overpaying for equipment, especially with the downturn in profitability. In my opinion right now, just overall, if I look at profitability, it hasn't really risen with the market, at least if we're speaking to specifically mining in particular. That doesn't mean that it's as bad as it would get if we actually followed a traditional super cycle. So we're going to look at it a little bit. I'm not a trader. This isn't financial advice. So all of my experience is typically within the technical aspects of setting up cryptocurrency mining operations, that sort of thing. It's not really trading, right? So take it from that perspective. That's what this show offers, a little bit different than other shows, is that we always are looking at this from the perspective of crypto mining. But before we get into it today, as always, let's go ahead and run the ad. And it will be a shorter stream today, meaning we've been going over an hour a lot. Has to end in an hour. Today's the big day of meeting with accountants and CPAs and getting taxes together. So as I learn through that, if I pick up any notes that I can speak to, stay tuned on the channel. But this week is going to be me preparing taxes, and I have no idea what I'm doing. So There you go. Let's go ahead and run the ad. Today's video is brought to you in partnership with Supps. Supps provides a healthy alternative to sugary energy drinks with delicious flavors like Misfits Melon or my favorite Blue Raz. I use the Supps as an alternative to support my active lifestyle outside of content creation. Caffeine-free options are great for late-night gaming after the kids have gone to bed. And my favorite part about Supps is that they accept cryptocurrency, and for a limited time, when you purchase a tub with cryptocurrency, you will receive a Bitcoin shaker. Follow the affiliate link in the description, and don't forget to use code SOAT at checkout. Boom! Alrighty, and welcome back. So as always, we start the show off with any new miner releases. Today we do have a new miner release. It's Team Black Miner version 1.54. I think the joke was said in the comments they should just call it Team Black Miner daily or nightly. It's because they release so many incremental updates. 1.54 released 6 hours ago, and there are two changes. First of which being if the LHR unlock auto tune fail after 50 adjustments fails, select the best tuning for the rest of that period. Number two is Ethermine and FlexPool over to a different stratum implementation. So basically just tweaks in for FlexPool and Ethermine, and a little bit of a change to the LHR unlock auto tune, specifically for if it fails and that sort of thing. So if you're looking at trying Team Black Miner version 1.54, feel free to go ahead. It does technically have the best hash rate for the RTX 3050 because they have specific implementation for that, and we did do the test on the channel already, but it's unfortunately not enough to really make up for anything on the RTX 3050 as it currently sits. So if you want to go check that out, definitely, if you already have an RTX 3050, check out the other video if you're looking to get more hash rate on that. Of course, the downside here is that Team Black Miner 1.54 doesn't have the dual mining option, and really the most profitable setup for the RTX 3050 right now is either going to be dual mining TON or Alephium. So we are going to talk about Alephium. I know a lot of people are getting into it. It was mainly covered by Red Panda. It has sort of the same setup as TON, and basically you don't lose a lot of ETH hash rate. Another one that Red Panda did over the weekend that you guys should probably check out was the triple mining, essentially, where you have ZIL, Ethereum, and Alephium or TON, either one. And the thing about that you need to take into account is the way that ZIL works with its dual mining is essentially you're either mining Ethereum or you're mining ZIL. And that's because ZIL only runs in incremental periods. So for the time that you can mine ZIL, essentially it goes over to that, it stops mining Ethereum, then it goes back to Ethereum once that's been solved for that particular block on ZIL. And that's kind of how that functions just from the top down perspective. So if you're looking at like getting the most Ethereum possible, it's not an option really there. However, a lot of people do find the project interesting and beneficial. So I haven't looked into it personally in depth, but that is kind of the overall things going on within the cryptocurrency mining space as it sits. So definitely take that into account. So next topic that we're going to talk about is going to be from CoinDesk. We have North Korea use stolen crypto to fund missile program. This is a report right here. Obviously, we already said from CoinDesk, the estimate of 50 million is significantly lower than the 400 million identified by Chain Analysis in a report released in January. Funny note, you have some bigger hacks than that going on, but North Korea used stolen crypto funds to help fund its missile development program, Reuters said, citing a report prepared for the United Nations. Quote, according to a member state, DPRK cyber actors, there we go. I feel like that should be two words, stole more than 50 million between 2020 and mid-21. from at least 3 cryptocurrency exchanges in North America, Europe, and Asia, end quote, the report said, using the initials of the country's formal name, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. The confidential report on the nuclear and ballistic missile program is prepared annually and was presented to the UN Security Council's North Korea Sanctions Committee on Friday. The estimate is significantly lower than the $400 million identified by Chainalysis in a report released January. It's also less than the $300 million found in the year earlier in the UN report. So a lot of the things that we need to take into account here is obviously we're always going to have issues within any economic structure that allows for either, the loss of funds through theft and so on. It's going to impact like the global economics of things, as well as whatever political agendas different countries have and so on. It's kind of funny to see North Korea participating in this at this level, but a lot of what I see in articles like this is not so much necessarily that, you need to regulate the crypto or anything along those lines, but more of, like I said, it kind of leans towards that FUD, in my opinion, where it's going to be an excuse or a potential excuse for further regulation to invade the privacy of individuals and so on. And you need to be able to understand where those lines get drawn as far as from your individual rights, etc. So I want it to be on the top of everybody's mind, because what usually follows up in situations like this, and this would probably come through either the United Nations or something along those lines, is that they are going to say, well, we need more tracking so that we can prevent bad actors from having access to cryptocurrency in an illegal manner. And really, yes, you should be able to prevent these types of things in certain circumstances for the good of everyone. Sure, I kind of get that, but you shouldn't give up your individual freedoms and rights over that as well. That's kind of like where I sit with it as far as this is all concerned. Now, I'm by no means, I guess, an expert in international relations, especially as it pertains to North Korea. Most of my knowledge would be based very lightly on some historical stuff, but let's go ahead and talk about this big one. NFTs are a scam, proclaims indie games store itch.io. Now, I quote retweeted this tweet that they sent out. This article is actually by WCCF Tech. We're going to get into it. I think you guys already know my opinion on NFTs, specifically as it pertains to gaming, but I think they're missing out on a couple key things here that we should mention as well. So while I may agree in certain terms surrounding NFTs, I don't necessarily agree with the full-on blanketed statement of they're kind of useless and a scam. The debate surrounding the implementation of NFTs and blockchain technology in games is getting increasingly hotter, following the huge backlash received by AAA NFTs initiatives like Ubisoft Quartz, Stalker Metaverse, and MetaWorms. GSC, Game World, and Team 17 eventually backed down, while Ubisoft is still moving forward with its blockchain plans, and so is Konami. Meanwhile, even Electronics Arts CEO Andrew Wilson made a U-turn on the topic. We talked about that last week. 3 months ago, he said NFTs would be the future of the games industry, whereas in the latest earnings call, he downplayed their importance in the company's plans, likely as a result of all negativity directed to the aforementioned initiatives. The most recent stand taken against NFTs comes from indie game store itch.io. Just yesterday, the company created in 2013 by Leaf Corporation called them out as a scam in a series of tweets. A few have asked about our stance on NFTs. This is coming from the tweet. NFTs are a scam if you think they're legitimately useful for anything other than the exploitation of creators, which is interesting, financial scams, and the destruction of the planet. We ask that you please reevaluate your life choices. Also, F any company that says they support creators and also endorses NFTs in any way. They only care about their own profit and the opportunity for wealth above anything else, especially given now easily given the now easily available discourse concerning the problems of NFTs. Look, I'm not going to come here and tell you guys that NFTs are perfect and that they should be implemented into gaming. I think we've already talked about this. Some of my issues that surrounding that is specifically in-game items tied to NFTs. While it does sound like a neat idea, there are multiple issues. One being taxes that we talked about last week. Another one, of course, just being the poor implementation of economic systems within video games in the past and how they don't really function in the favor of the player. So that's kind of where my argument against NFTs integrated into gaming specifically function. If we're talking about a platform, though, that distributes software to the public, a big key point that I think that they're missing out on here is the implementation of NFTs to track the ownership of different titles. This could be very advantageous within especially the indie game scene, and could help, of course, independent creators or developers of video games actually benefit more than the platforms that distribute it. And this is where it kind of seems a little bit maybe nearsighted, because depending on like what research they've done within NFTs in particular as it pertains to gaming, they could be swayed to, I guess I understand this point of view. However, specifically when they say the exploitation of creators, NFTs typically solve the problem for creators to stop them from being exploited. And usually it stops them from being exploited by a single centralized platform that distributes their software, i.e., a storefront like itch.io, similarly to like Steam, etc., where we have obviously already had in the past issues with a super high cut of the percentage of the sales of any given title on different platforms. In the case of Apple, for example, being all the way up to 30%. So if there's a better way to distribute software and prove ownership, then I don't see why that wouldn't want to be implemented. And I could see a use case for this specifically within NFTs. So I think that they're missing the grander scheme of NFTs, and they're maybe kind of focusing on this microtransaction portion, which I agree with shouldn't be implemented into games, at least most games. So I think that is also going to be very genre specific. If we're talking about like a collectible card game, like you have Magic the Gathering Arena, etc., it makes sense that you could tie that to an open marketplace and decentralize the process of trading, etc. Now, MTGA is a little bit different. Maybe we would apply that more to MTGO, which is the Magic the Gathering Online, not quite nearly as popular, but a lot of that has to do with correcting the in-game ecosystem so that they can basically build more decks. The players can build more decks, and that's kind of what MTGA did to make it a little bit more user-friendly. But there are projects like Gods Unchained, etc., where you do tie the collectible card to an NFT, and it proves ownership, etc. And I think that that is important as an option for, in particular, that specific use case and genre, right? And maybe that goes out later into things like massive multiplayer online games like World of Warcraft, whatever, to track it for a particular item. But those are a lot harder to actually implement, good in-game economic systems that actually add to the player experience and don't detract from it. So this is kind of where I sit, and here we go. We'll go ahead and finish a little bit of this. Don't expect to see games using non-fungible tokens on itch.io then. They're already banned from Steam, whereas Epic Games decided to allow NFTs and blockchain on its store, even though the company behind Fortnite does not plan on any implementation in its own games. That doesn't mean that the industry push towards non-fungible tokens is over anyways. GameStop has recently partnered with Immutable X to establish a $100 million fund in tokens that will be used for grants to creators of NFTs. And see, this is obviously, in my opinion, just another way in which it appears to be benefiting the creators of the NFTs, as well as potentially in the future the developers of the titles, at least to a certain extent. Definitely not a blanket statement either direction, as I feel like specifically itch.io here is trying to make it out to be, right? We could also address the financial scams. Sure, that's their second point, right? That one I can agree with. Obviously, we have scam problems within crypto all over the place. Speaking of which, I'll never ask for your number or call you or ask you to invest in anything cryptocurrency related. So be careful in the comment section below. This is where it's at. Now, like we've said before, the argument would be with great power comes great responsibility. And that power that I refer to is the power of the individual to control their financial position. So that's kind of where I get that idea from. So let's get into the destruction of the planet portion. Obviously, very harsh terms. It's inaccurate at best, right? But what they're referencing, of course, is specifically going to be the environmental impacts of mining cryptocurrency. And the thing that people seem to keep missing is the economic incentives placed on cryptocurrency miners. What is your number one incentive as a cryptocurrency miner past the revenue? That's going to be your cost. And that cost is primarily going to be power. So you are incentivized as a cryptocurrency miner at any level to reduce the cost of your power. The best way to reduce the cost of your power at this time is moving into, of course, renewable energies. And that is because of the incentives that federal governments have put in place, as well as the access to it growing higher and more across, right? More ubiquitous. And because of that, what you have is essentially the potential for cryptocurrency mining specifically to greatly enhance the timeline for getting to more renewable energy sources, etc. And this is because obviously the thing that drives technology in general is going to be that economic incentive, right? If you have that incentive to go ahead and become more renewable, etc., then you're going to go that route. We can see this across the cryptocurrency mining in general. Not only did Texas just go through a cold period where, if compared to last year, the power would have shut off, and it didn't, thanks to Bitcoin mining and its investment within the Texas power grid, but you also have things like Intel coming out with low voltage ASIC miners. And that is specifically because they are incentivized to reduce the amount of power an ASIC miner takes compared to the amount of production it provides. And these are key points when we are specifically talking about the environmental impact of mining cryptocurrency. And I would argue that due to the economic incentives, the fastest way to get to renewable energy is by embracing cryptocurrency mining and allowing those companies to further research and implement renewable energies into their operations. That's how I see it. So I don't agree with them as far as that goes. Let's get into the fun parts. Technology, videocards.com here. We have Nvidia Hopper with 2.6 times the transistors of GA102. According to a rumor from Chappelle forums, Nvidia's next-gen data center GPU called Hopper might feature as many as 140 billion transistors. Chappelle and Zhang, the one I can't pronounce here, did not actually mention GH100 or any other GPU by its name. However, the context clearly refers to Nvidia's upcoming 5nm GPU codename Hopper. It is said that more than 140 billion transistors might be used by this AI processor. The most recent rumor put Hopper GPUs among the largest processors it's ever made. It was said that might even feature a 900 millimeter squared die, but many enthusiasts are rightly skeptical of this claim because the current EUV photomask reticle limit is 858 millimeters squared. Furthermore, it is said that Hopper architecture might actually span into multiple designs, one of them, the GH100, being a monolithic chip, while rumored GH102 might actually be a multi-chip module design. I feel like every time we get closer and closer to like the end of a manufacturing process or a generation, it seems like they always kind of fold back into a multi-chip design. The only difference now, obviously, is with AMD and kind of their breakthrough in the chiplet designs, kind of modifying the way this functions, is going to be helpful as far as power draw goes as well. One should mention here is that there were also rumors about another Ampere data center GPU called GA101, supposedly of half of the size of the GA100, but this GPU was never released. The Hopper architecture is set to compete against already announced AMD Aldebaran GPU and Intel's upcoming Ponte Vecchio. I don't know, sorry, I can't do that one. This might be the first time all three companies will at the same time have powerful accelerators with HBM2E memory and multi-chip module design. Now, obviously, the HBM2E memory, HBM memory in general, has performed really well in mining. The question will be, at that point, right, the price to performance and, of course, power to performance as well. But it's usually super helpful. You do here have a comparison of the GH100, GA100, Aldebaran, and then the Intel chip as well, the AMD and the Intel chip. And what you see is obviously the TSMC N5 manufacturing process. AMD's on N6. Intel has basically 3 going on here. That looks interesting. So you have the Intel 7 for the base, TSMC N7 for the XE link, and the N5 for the compute tile. If we take a look at memory, which is kind of what we're really looking at, all of these are pretty good. The Intel is not quite up there, you know, for the mining, as best as I can tell, up to 80 gigabytes. You got up to 128 gigabytes on AMD with 8 by H, and then this 8 by HBM2E, and then the same on the Intel. So if I had to presume right now which one of these would be potentially best for mining, I would lean towards AMD or Intel. Should be interesting to see what they come out with. Like we've talked about, a lot of what's going on with Intel, not particularly within this specific architecture for data centers, but overall is that their desktop line does look like it will be low power at the very least, and they do have a pretty decent sized memory setup for that low power. I would hope that the Intel would get a release for their power consumption though as well. So let's go ahead and talk about Ergo. So soon what we have here coming up is the EIP 27 soft fork for essentially Ergo and their blockchain. If you're not familiar with Ergo, you can mine it. It's mineable. We've talked about how to do that on this channel. You can go back and take a look at that. A lot of the benefits surrounding Ergo has to be with the oracle between Cardano, so it kind of has that top 100 coin to work off of. In addition to that, it has had some of the fastest development time in the dApps arena that I've ever seen on a project. So things like, but not limited to, decentralized finance, to where you can swap and add liquidity, to, of course, NFTs and multiple different NFT platforms that are integrated. And of course, like I said, that integration with potentially with Cardano, especially as it pertains to their bridges, etc., makes it a pretty attractive project to get behind, especially post ETH 2.0, or I shouldn't even say 2.0 now because they've gone ahead and changed the terminology, but ETH specifically moving proof of stake and taking the GPUs off mining. Ergo is a pretty interesting one. One of the places where they obviously, I think at this point, made a mistake was with, of course, their distribution method through the consensus mechanism, which is proof of work. Now, if you guys aren't aware, essentially the way pretty much all proof of work functions is that there is a set amount of time before the base reward goes away for miners. Now, that base reward is essentially something that is guaranteed for solving a block that does not include fees. And that means that basically, no matter what, the miners can basically rely on a certain amount of whatever they're mining to be paid out. In the case of Bitcoin, this isn't going to end till like 2140. And then once all the coins are mined, essentially what will happen is that miners will only be receiving the fees. Now, the fees are determined, of course, by the network, and it depends on which network we're talking about. If we took a look at Ethereum, of course, those fees basically determine order of transactions, among other things, of course. And if the network's really heavy, those fees go up and miners reap more of a reward. Now, in the case of Ergo, what we are finding is that the initial emission cycle for the mining portion ends a little bit quick on the base block reward. And because of that, the potential that you run into post ending of this block reward being paid out is not enough of an economic incentive for miners to continue to provide security. That's the best tells I can determine from exactly what this EIP is trying to do. Ergo has by far the fastest emission cycle that I've ever seen as far as a base block reward goes, and it ends in 6 years. EIP 27 is going to essentially solve this in kind of a unique manner for a proof of work coin. It's going to take a portion of the block reward and repurpose it back into a contract that will then be paid out as a base block reward after the 6 years is up. This would hopefully continue to incentivize miners to provide basically security to the network in addition to the fees. Now, my assumption here is there's not enough adoption for those fees alone to compensate for that incentive. So that's kind of where you're at as far as this goes. Now, the good thing about it is that Ergo has basically a governance model that is determined by the miners on the network. That means that the miners can, of course, make the decision on whether or not they want EIP 27 to go in or not. And in this particular case, the thing is that Ergo is now mineable on mining pools. And when we're talking about governance for miners and mining pools controlling basically the decision for everybody else, you can run into a problem. One of the neat things that has come out of this that I haven't actually seen implemented before is basically a governance token, a governance vote that getblock, a mining pool themselves, has developed. And it really changes the way this functions, because now as an individual miner, you can go in and essentially determine how the pool votes. Unfortunately, it will be a majority vote in this particular case, and the pool will still make the final vote for everybody else. So it's not like you're actually getting individual votes all the way into Ergo, but you can influence at least the vote, the way this pool in particular votes, which is really neat. And so as you can see here right now on ergo.getblock.io/vote, they have the statistics up. And basically, whenever you mine or get a payout of Ergo, you get a portion of that, not a portion of that, you also get a GBGT, which is the governance token for EIP 27. 0.7. Once you've done that, you basically have two contracts here, one contract to vote yes and one contract to vote no. And you will go into your Ergo wallet, use that GBGT asset and send it with 0.001 Ergo along with it just to pay for the network fees to vote the way that you think this should go. Regardless of which side that you're going to vote for, in my opinion, this is something that is, to a certain extent, pretty revolutionary for cryptocurrency mining in general, and I stand behind it. Now, are there problems with it? Yes, there are problems with it, but this is a much better step in the right direction and really shows, that the industry can move forward in different ways, and this is very cool. I also just huge shout out to getblock.io. I'm not sponsored by them. We don't take pool sponsorships or coin sponsorships or anything like that. It's just when somebody does something neat, I like to point it out. So that's kind of where I sit as far as this goes. If you're going to be mining Ergo, I would mine to the pool that gives you, from a principled standpoint, that gives you the most say as an individual miner, and that's getblock. Now, as far as profitability and pure profitability, well, you're probably not even mining Ergo at that point. If we're being honest, you're going to still be on ETH right now. But if you are mining some Ergo and you're more like wanting to support a pool that supports you, I'd definitely take a look at it. And I have taken a look at it. Let's go ahead and talk about this Valkyrie thing. We've talked about basically investing in whatever, mining or cryptocurrency in general through another company, right? And where you have essentially limited exposure to cryptocurrency. But what we've found is that limited exposure to cryptocurrency is a lot less true than the companies that are getting you to invest in them want you to believe. So I think you should be very careful when basically purchasing stocks in relation to cryptocurrency, because then, in my opinion, you aren't getting limited exposure. I think that you're ending up exposing yourself to two different markets. Just from my perspective, I would want less exposure to less markets, but as far as for a single individual investment. But that's my opinion. Valkyrie here, Cointelegraph aims for ETF linked to Bitcoin mining firms on the NASDAQ. The proposed ETF would invest at least 80% of its net assets in securities of companies that derive at least 50% of their revenue or profits from Bitcoin mining in particular. Crypto asset manager Valkyrie has filed an application with the United States Securities and Exchange Commission to trade an exchange-traded fund, ETF, with exposure to Bitcoin mining firms on the NASDAQ stock market. In a Wednesday SEC filing, Valkyrie said its Bitcoin miners ETF will not invest directly in Bitcoin, but at least 80% of its net assets would offer exposure to the crypto asset through the securities of a company that derive at least 50% of their revenue or profits from Bitcoin mining, or providing hardware or software related to mining. Now, here's one thing that would be interesting is the hardware portion of it, right? So I think being invested in, off the top of my head, I think Hut 8, but that's not a Bitcoin mining farm. But being invested in something like Hut 8, where they're actually mining the cryptocurrency, has more exposure than, and is different than, investing in Bitmain, or maybe like obviously Intel would be a better example of somewhere where they're just providing the software and the hardware. And I think there could be something said for that. So, and so maybe this is a little bit better than just purely investing in like a Bitcoin mining farm, if that makes sense. The filing added Valkyrie would invest up to 20% of the ETF's net assets in companies holding a significant portion of their net assets in Bitcoin. So they are still obviously here taking 20% of those funds and putting it into Bitcoin directly or into cryptocurrency directly. And that's going to offer, that's going to put more exposure to the market trends of Bitcoin. Valkyrie launched a Bitcoin strategy ETF in October 2021, which offered an indirect exposure to Bitcoin with cash-settled futures contracts following SEC approval for a similar ETF from ProShares. At the time of publication, and this is actually last week, shares of the fund traded on the NASDAQ for $14.93, having fallen more than 40% since the opening on October 22nd. That is eerily similar, and that's kind of my point. That is like so close to the reduction of the value of cryptocurrency at the time of this article being written, which was January 26th. So you're not getting limited exposure. You're still getting that full exposure to the crypto market. That's what it looks like to me, at least. In 2021, the SEC approved investment vehicles linked to Bitcoin derivatives for the first time, but hasn't given the green light to any Bitcoin spot exchange traded fund in the United States. The Valkyrie Bitcoin Miners ETF resembles the digital asset mining ETF proposed by asset manager Van Eck in December of 2021, which plans to invest 80% of its total assets in securities from crypto mining firms. The regulatory body has until February 14th to reach a decision on the fund for extended deadline. And that actually just went through today on February 7th, 2022. This is to certify that on the 2nd of February, the NASDAQ Stock Market, LLC, the exchange, received from Valkyrie ETF Trust 2 a copy of the registrant's application for the registration of the following security. We further certify that security described above has been approved by the exchange for the listing and registration upon official notice of issuance. So this has taken place now at this point. So as far as overall, what this does mean is that there will be obviously greater institutional investment. And I think that this is a good thing for cryptocurrency overall. However, like I said, personally, as far as investing in something like that, I don't think I would. But it's still a good thing. Let's talk a little bit about cryptocurrency markets, and then we'll get into the mining for the day. This time is flying by today, but Bitcoin is up 14%, Ethereum's up 18%, and then, of course, everything is kind of following up with all of these, right? You have anywhere from like in the top 100 from probably an averaging around like 15% bump in all cryptocurrency assets. And this begs the question, you know, what are we looking at the traditional super cycle? Are we really looking at a bear market for 2022? And by all accounts, that from most of the trading channels that I watch, I was watching a little bit of DAP University this morning for their live stream. It definitely appears that there are too many outside influences for this to play out exactly like the previous super cycles. Now, with this downturn that happened earlier, I was kind of thinking, as you guys know, it may turn into a bear market. I don't actually know either way. I would still expect, you know, as people start paying taxes, etc., that we see a decrease in the price of crypto coming up in like March and April, that sort of thing, like we're in tax season. But maybe we saw a lot of the liquidation for tax season already. I don't really know at this point. It does feel to me as if we are sort of like out of this super cycle in general. However, I don't think that necessarily means that we are like completely free of a bear market or anything like that. And I don't do a lot of predictions or and we've talked about this before, but like if we were going to see a traditional super cycle, you would expect Bitcoin to go down to about 21,000, the previous all-time high, and then Ethereum to go down to like 1,100, which was its previous all-time high. And you would expect that to happen sometime after, you know, sometime in March or April, and that sort of thing. And then kind of everything settle out and be kind of flatlined for a couple of years until the Bitcoin halving happens again. Now, will that happen this time? I don't really know, but I'm not really seeing it follow the exact pattern. Part of the reason is that we had a big dump kind of at off time after the beginning of the year, where you typically would see a rise like we did last year, or even right before the last bear market, what you saw in like I think it was like right around February, but before February through January, it was pumping, and the bear market started a little bit after that. So what we see is it's kind of a good news thing to me, as far as like what it's signaling, is that we've kind of been in this same range between like 40 and 60K on Bitcoin for quite some time now. And because it's been that long without huge shoot ups or anything like that, this may be a good sign overall. And obviously the external factors that are changing things, like we talked about before, is going to be, the inflation rates being an issue, also specifically for cryptocurrency, large institutional investing going on, a huge upturn in, of course, Bitcoin mining facilities, crypto mining in general. So with large companies hopping in there, it's very, very unlikely that they start selling like Bitcoin at a loss, right? Especially when we're talking about mining, and because the miners are the amount of mining has gone up so significantly, I think the influence of miners goes up even more. And because of that, I think the price is going to stay a little bit higher this time potentially than it did last time. We may even skip a bear market. We also have to take into account what may happen after the next halving, though, because that will also influence the price to go up. So at least from my perspective, part of the cycle that remains is going to be that after a halving, the price of cryptocurrency goes up. How far it goes back down is the part where I'm, at the point of like, okay, I don't know if we start a bear market or anything like that. So the part that remains true, to the best of my ability to determine, is the halving of Bitcoin in particular influencing the price of the market to go up. Mining. All right. So mining's been interesting. I had some issues. I feel like I have issues every weekend, but it is what it is. This is the way it goes. Right now we are, sitting around 5 gigahash a second. 24-hour average was 5.2. I had a rig that I had to reset, and then my hotspots went down. Still waiting on internet, but estimated daily earnings is 0.07 ETH. It's actually down quite a bit, unfortunately. That being said, thanks to the price pump in USD, we're up over our normal average to 234. You guys might have seen on my Twitter that I think it was Friday, there was a huge NFT sale, and Flexpool actually found like 500 plus ETH blocks. So we had a day there where, the farm really did like triple what it normally does. I think it was like $600 and something for one day. And that was awesome. Now, how is the, Ton coin working out for me? So all of these rigs are also dual mining Ton coin. And we talked about this last week. We had a couple really, really good days, and I can't really pull it up for you guys right now, but we're having issues with Whales Ton pool. So what I'm hearing from the chat is that essentially we have a problem with that pool. So today, for example, when I went and checked the balance, we were only at 6.5 Ton over the past 24 hours, a little less, 22 hours. Whereas previously we were doing 37 Ton a day. As far as the rigs are showing, we're good, but what we're also showing is that the profitability is super down. So something seems to be pretty bad with the Whales pool Ton. Some people are saying doing Ton pool is working for them. To be clear on the Ton pool, part of the problem with that in particular is going to be that it was hacked. So I don't know if that's the pool I want to go with. It was hacked, before the dual mining thing was going on. I think if you continue to withdraw, daily, then you're good. And the withdrawals don't cost a lot. So I think you're good as far as that go. I think it's 0.02 as a network fee. So just withdrawing daily, even if you have a little bit, to be safe on the TON pool one. Because if it gets hacked and you have a balance, you definitely have to worry about losing that balance. The RTX 3090 profitability for the day, let's go ahead and look at it and calculate this out. Let's get the cost to 10 cents a kilowatt hour per what we typically do. And on Ethereum, a 3090 is doing $4.31 a day, and that is after a power cost of 10 cents a kilowatt hour. Flux comes in second at $1.20 less, $3.10 a day after power. Conflux is on the list. Cero's on the list with the Prog Pow. You got, under $3 for all of these. Ethereum Classic still holding pretty strong. It used to be at the bottom of the list, so that's looking promising, especially for the Polaris GPUs. Cortex, $2.50 a day after power. Ryo, we talked about that last week. Ergo, $2.47 a day after power. So technically beating out Classic and Conflux just because of its low power consumption in general. So that's something to take into account, especially if you have a higher power cost. And Ravencoin's all the way down here, just above Z Classic at $2.06 a day after power. Now, it does look like we are seeing better performance for Flux here recently. So let's take a look at the 2080 Ti. Throughout December, Flux was more profitable, and then it kind of went back to ETH early in January. And it looks like now Flux is once again more profitable for the 2080 Ti. At 10 cents a kilowatt hour over Ethereum. So it's $2.32 a day for a 2080 Ti, and for Ethereum, $2.04 a day. So that's going to be important, I think, for us to keep track of, especially because we really want to see what the average is going to be over time, right? So how much are you going to make extra over mining Ethereum with Flux performing so well on these particular GPUs? Let's take a look at, of course, Polaris. We'll do one RX 580 here. Ethereum coming in $1.05 a day after power, finally. And then if we go down, Ravencoin's at 39 cents a day after power. Fero's up there per usual. Ergo at 48 cents a day after power. And Flux is all the way down here at 27 cents a day after power. There you go. Oh, Ethereum Classic, 54 cents a day after power. So about 50% reduction there from the Ethereum. Let's take a look at ASIC miners. Goldshell KD6 still really holding that first place spot. It's up pretty good, mining $144 a day. It was down even below 100 for a while last week. KD5, 97.64 a day. You have the Antminer L7, which is going to be your Dogecoin Litecoin merged miner at 64.67 a day. And then you still have the Antminer D7 here at $34 a day. Let's take a look at the S19s. Their profitability is not going up with the price of Bitcoin. I would expect more out of it, really, honestly. But on mining rig rentals, it's $18.70 a day. On Bitcoin alone, it's $15.21 a day. And that's the S19A Pro. So, but it's pretty similar as far as for the S19 Pro. And, that profitability is pretty rough. Well, specifically the ROI. So if we're looking at the ROI of, an S19 Pro at $11,000, which is kind of what they're going for in most places, you're looking at 594 day ROI. So there's definitely better deals. But here's the thing you got to take into account with Bitcoin. I don't think we're going to see Bitcoin mining go anywhere. So you have till the year 2140 to go ahead and mine it. And we'll all be, long gone by then in our graves. Hopefully the miners will still be going for the kids and they inherit something. But even the S9s at low power are still on the network, still technically within profit, depending on your power cost, right? So the longevity of the Bitcoin miners is especially the ASICs, well, obviously just the ASICs, seems to be a lot longer. There's a lot more potential for profit because I don't think Bitcoin's going to go anywhere. I don't think Bitcoin mining is going to go anywhere. So that's kind of the perspective a lot of Bitcoin miners are taking here. And so these longer ROIs aren't as scary, especially if you consider the fact that these could potentially be making even more after the next halving. So it's kind of where we're at as far as that goes. If we take a look at the market prices, though, like I said, for the S19 Pro, you're still looking at like $11,000 here on BT miners. They do have some new ones. They are supposed to be getting back to me. They were supposed to get back to me on Saturday. I did have a phone call with a representative from BT miners, specifically in regards to these koi miners, because the koi miners have pretty good performance, specifically for the price. So hoping to get those in for review for you guys. It doesn't look like it's going to be a deal where I get to keep the miner, but that's okay. I'll get the miner in. We'll mine on it. We'll get you guys some ideas. It's about getting you all the information here. And then obviously, since I'll get to test it, maybe I'll decide to purchase one, etc. I'll let you guys know when we get it in, and we'll go from there. Let's get into questions and answers. We have a little bit of time left, and let's go. So questions and answers, as always. Hold on. There we go. Questions and answers, as always. Super chats will go first because they're the easiest to read. And other than that, at Son of a Tech for any other additional questions. I'm going to scroll up. We got one super chat from Arcade Cup. 350. Thank you for the 350. Says, thanks, teacher. I guess. Andreas11G says, when you going to create your NFTs? I've created a couple. They're on OpenSea, and they're linked down below. That drooling noob says, hello, Son of a Tech. I found a 3060X Gaming Trio 12 gigabyte for €500. You want to start mining, but should you buy this and start now, or is it not worth it ever? So as far as, I guess, the 3060, I don't know. Okay. Right. The X Gaming Trio would be the model. So that's a base 3060, and you can always go check this sort of thing out. Part of the problem with the 3060 is you do have that light hash rate going on, but if you went to what to mine, you can just click the 3060, put in your power, and then calculate it out. You can kind of calculate your ROI. On Ethereum, you know, let's see, what's it saying here? 35 mega hash a second. So $1.29 a day. But you do have these other ones to back it up. You know, it's all within the same price range. $1.21 a day on Cero, $1.10 a day. But, you know, at €500, and I'd have to do the conversion, but I think it's a little more. You are looking at, I mean, it's easily over a 500 day ROI more than likely. And it really depends on what you're doing it for. So if you're looking at just learning about mining, etc., you don't have any GPU to play around with on right now, and you need a GPU to start doing that with, then I think the investment is, you know, beneficial. We all got to start somewhere, right? If you're already mining and you're looking at purchasing a 3060 for €500, maybe you want to hold off a little bit. You know, at this point, really, you can get, from what I've seen, 6600s and 6600 XTs for the same price, get the same Ethereum hash rate. But you, of course, the benefit of the 3060 there would be that you do have a plan for post Ethereum. So you have to start weighing out all of those things. And I can't weigh that out for you because that's not my decision to make, right? But that's kind of the guidance I can give you as far as it goes. Tom says, could this be the new bear market? You know, with sways of 15% up and down? I don't know. I guess potentially. I guess it's more like is it more like a 35% over the past week, though? I can't remember what the lows were last week. But I guess it does feel a lot like similar sideways action going on right now. I think the markets are trying to figure out what's happening with regulation, though. I think once that's clear cut, we'll have a better idea. That's one of those external forces that is like really changing the way investors are strategizing around this. Hopefully I'll learn more as well as I learn more about like what I need to do for taxes, etc. We got DJ Mines in the house. Make sure you guys go follow him and sub to his YouTube channel. Martin Johnson says, "That's son of a tech. Do you think GPU mining will be profitable after ETH moves proof of stake?" Yes. By how much, I don't know. And for everyone, no, because it will depend on geographical location, price, price of power, that sort of thing. Amigos PC says, "That's son of a tech. I have a 5700 XT that is dual mining ETH and TON. Mirrored XFX overclocks you recently posted on Twitter, getting expected hash on ETH, but 500 gigahash on TON. Is there another setting for TON?" So what I'm trying to figure out, because I can repeat the process, and specifically on mine, I'm getting like 700 megahash a second on the, I don't know if I'm getting this mixed up, on the Samsung ones. And this is weird because you would not expect memory to impact it. For whatever reason, on the Micron ones, those are the ones I'm getting over 3 gigahash. Now, what I did do to make sure, because I don't know if it's a false report necessarily, doesn't seem like it, because I was getting out the calculated amount that I thought I should get about, based on the amount of hash power that was being reported in HiveOS. That being said, the only distinction between the two is whether it's Samsung or Micron is the best that I can tell, but that wouldn't really logically make sense, like I said, to me, because of the way it functions primarily on core. So I'd expect the memory to be primarily impacting the Ethereum mining and not the TON mining. The only thing that I can tell you that I can repeat is basically if I take the core voltage and turn it down to what I previously had it on for Ethereum only, the TON hash rate will go down to like that 700 on those microns. If I go or not 700, about 1. Okay. But if I go in and then remove that and allow the core to clock up, and then go up to like 1400 to 1500 megahertz on the core, then we start getting the results that I showed. It's going to take some more due diligence before we can really determine exactly what those settings are, though. And that's just the nature of the beast. We just got that done last Thursday. Swinny says, "That's son of a tech. I feel like dual mining ETH and Flux would be massive. Flux is pure core. It's not, though. It uses 3 gigabytes of the video memory. So no, it won't function that way. Now, there could be an argument for potentially, and I don't know the algorithm good enough to tell you how well it would perform, but two things that would impact that significantly would be amount of VRAM on the GPU itself, as well as the amount of, or how big the memory bus is. So, for example, one thing that I know for sure wouldn't work is like Ethereum and Flux dual mining on a 6 gigabyte GPU, because the DAGs would be too large to load up onto the GPU. Martin Johnson says, "Ask Son of a Tech, do you think GPU mining will be profitable after?" Okay, we already answered that, bud. Charles says, "What wallet do you mine to?" It really depends on what I'm trying to do. You can mine to a hardware wallet or directly to an exchange, depending on how much you want to cash out to pay for power and cover bills, etc. So that's going to be up to you. Phone backup, thank you for the 200. Is that yen or something? I don't know. Says, "That's Son of a Tech. How do you get paid in Bitcoin for TON mining without paying too high a gas fee?" I've already covered that in my cashing out TON coin video. If you are not in the US geographical location, then you have exchanges that will be cheaper methods of liquidating. However, if you're in the US geographical location, then you are going to have that base 5 TON fee to bridge over to Ethereum or Binance Smart Chain. Obviously, I'd recommend Binance Smart Chain because the fee overall, like the fee that is above the 5 fee is going to be less than on Ethereum. Now that's you're playing a percentage game there, right? So the more ton you do in a single swap, the less percentage rate you're going to be paying. And so if you are planning on, cashing out ton, save it up until that 5 ton base fee in the US is cheap, right? Like if you save up 500 ton in your ton wallet and then you bridge it out, at that point you're paying a 1% fee, right? So that's the game you're playing. That's just it, right? I mean, it's just how it's going to function. Jacob Twitchell says, what do you think a good price for a 3090 is? Found one on Newegg for $27.99. At this point, the most I would pay would be $16.50, I guess. Maybe a little more, but I think there's going to be better options, though, coming up here soon, too. So it's getting to the point to where if you're calculating mega hash per dollar, there are better options, but of course there is the argument for density. My experience with the 3090s has not been fantastic. So we have 10 of them. And it's a constant battle with the 3090s to keep the memory modules on the backside cool enough to mine at full hash rate potential. So the numbers that you're getting in what to mine are actually, in my opinion, over what you could really expect. And even if you replace all of the pads, etc., you're still, depending on the model of the 3090, really going into getting into murky waters as far as maintaining that hash rate. That being said, like some of the cards that I don't have as many issues with, like pad and done, right? Because pretty much you're going to have to pad them all. So at least you're going to have to apply pads to the back plate, at the very least, in most cases. The only cards that seem to be good after a pad and I've done nothing with have been the EVGA for the Win 3s after the first revision, because the first revision, you got to remember, is the one that was blowing up in different games, primarily New World, but a lot of that also had to do specifically with the power problems, the power distribution problems on that revision. So outside of that, the EVGA for the Win 3s have been doing really good. The Founders Editions are all over the place, it feels like. I have 2 Founders Editions. One, after a padding's been fine. The other one seems to just struggle. It sits around 90 megahash a second. So I haven't been as big of a fan of the 3090s other than from the perspective of resaleability, but I also question that based on reliability. It's all good says, at Son of a Tech, were you mining ETH now? Last night you finally realized Hivon is not the most profitable pool for me. Well, yeah, move to a good one. I am. Oh, where am I? I'm mining specifically on Flex Pool right now. But definitely watch my how to avoid rejected shares video for that. Guess who says, at Son of a Tech, are you having any load average issues dual mining ETH and TON? No, I'm not having any load average issues. I see people are having that problem. Most of the time when that happens, you could, like, it's usually when Hive OS is installing an update of some sort. You may want to consider doing like a self-upgrade force and see if that resolves it. Another thing that you could do, of course, is check the thermal paste on the CPU, right? That's really what you're looking at. Pay Me in Crypto says, ask Son of a Tech, any positive thoughts on Callisto? I haven't done enough research to really have any idea of what's going on with it. ACQ says, ask Son of a Tech, when do you think the next parallel assets will be released for Flux? I don't know. I haven't been looking in their Discord for any updates on that necessarily, so I don't know a timeline. You can always check their Discord. They typically keep you up to date on like which ones they're working on. They'll hint towards different projects that are going to be parallel assets. But I have no confirmations on anything at this time. I just know that we have like the 4 left over. Three or 4. I think 5 are out, 3 are coming. Is that right? Arcade Cup says, that's son of a tech. Have you seen millisecond MS difference in miners? You have one reporting 15 milliseconds and another 40 milliseconds. That's a big difference. Same pool and same coin. You could have, I don't know. I haven't seen that. I can try to do some research and see why that may be. I was trying to think of something off the top of my head. Obviously, like an OS level firewall issue could be it, but probably not. Jay Bain says, at Son of a Tech, new Zotac 3060 Wide Edition for $5.99 from Zotac, or OpenBox Strix 2070 Super 600 local. What would you do? I think if I recall, so if we take a look over here, once again, you guys can make these decisions for yourself. $1.02 on Flux. One of the things you would take into consideration would be the post ETH benefit as well. So you're getting what? You're getting more on both Ethereum and Flux with the 2070 Super. You don't have any limits on Ethereum, so you're not having to worry about the unreliability of light hash rate unlockers. And then you're looking at mining more Flux post ETH merge whenever that may or may not happen, right? So $1.35 a day versus the 3060 at $1.21 a day. Or no, sorry, $1 a day. You could run them. I mean, they're both 600, right? So it's pretty easy to say you would do the 2070 Super because you're making more on both sides. So pretty easy decision as far as that goes. Sweeney says, that's Son of a Tech. I feel like dual mining ETH and Flux. Oh, we already talked about that. What wallet do you recommend? Already talked about that. Sam Temple says, that's Son of a Tech, Aliphium or versus TON. Which should you choose? TON has much more liquidity options. That's Aliphium's biggest downside. Aliphium, from my understanding, uses less power. It also makes less, but if your concern is overall power, then Aliphium would be a better dual mining option. And then, of course, they pretty much only have a single non-US available exchange to use for liquidating, while at least on TON you have 2 bridges and multiple exchanges. Living Our Destiny says, as Son of a Tech, did you ever get a chance to look into Conflux going proof of stake? No, I have not. Sorry about that. Tonoli says, as Son of a Tech, how long does it take for TON's first earning to reflect in the TON wallet? It's not going to be in your wallet. So and we already talked about this before. It's in, I have 2 videos that cover it, but within Telegram, you do /withdraw and then you have to withdraw to your wallet. So that's something you have to do manually. Please go watch one of the how-tos for that. Big says, that Son of a Tech, with my 3090s, I have had the best results by putting thermal pads on the back memory and copper shims on the pads. Correct. And I still actually have to do the copper portion. Matthew says, at Son of a Tech, are you currently mining on TON Whales Pool? And then if so, have you looked at your Hive shell? Yes and yes. I looked at the Hive shell this morning. I am getting shares from them. The Windows ones are not, though. Quincy Jackson says, that son of a techie. Yes, I am. I gotta switch off of it though, because we're not getting near the profit that we were. Part of that can be difficulty though. The Canon says, ask son of a tech, when buying new GPUs, do you consider the whole farm's ability to help ROI the card? Not really, because that you would want to track ROI on each individual piece of equipment based on the amount it pays out. There is something to be said though for like in just, you know, continuing to increase the farm size even during like a bull run when the prices are high, right? Mattis says, ask Simon Tech, what do you think about buying 2060 Supers long term? You have an opportunity to get 12 for 400 US dollars each. I mean, once again, you're just going to go back to what to mine and take a look and see what's happening there. I actually don't think 2060 Supers are up though. Let me see. I don't know why I'm not seeing it. See the 2060, but I think they're around 30 mega hash a second, and that's under what you can buy 6600 XTs for. So it seems like a good price. Charles, I'll be having to look for a cryptocurrency mining bank as well. I don't have one for you right now. Golden Wolf says, ask son of a tech, have a good day. You're off to work. Have a good day at work, Golden Wolf. Dan San says, ask son of a tech, if you have to get an economic MOBO for mining 8+ cards, which would you buy? I don't know. There's not really like a good economic board that does 8 GPUs. Even if you look at like Bitcoin mining specific boards, like the Zotac one that's cheaper was pretty bad. That one failed on me. 2 of those actually have failed on me. The BioStar 8 GPU possibly. You know, it's gonna vary. Like, I'd have to go look at the market and see what's up. But that's kind of where we're at. Oh. All right, boys. That's going to wrap it up. I got to start preparing documentation. I don't get to do jujitsu today. I'll be doing taxes the rest of the day. So I hope you guys enjoyed the stream. Don't forget to hit the like, comment, subscribe, and share the video out with all your friends and family and anybody else interested in cryptocurrency. I appreciate each and every one of you for allowing me to do this full time. So that's pretty awesome. And I'll continue to try to share all the knowledge that I gain as I go through it and, you know, communicate whatever knowledge you guys provide to me to everybody else. That's where we're at. Keep calm, mine on t-shirts down below from Teespring. There's already quite a few different outlets copying the design. So we did make an NFT of it though. Purchase it directly from the channel though. Don't forget to use the link if you guys need some gamer supps, and I will see you next Tuesday.